Tonight, a tropical depression over Christmas Island on tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for November 18th. Around the world, the tropics are relatively quiet. We're down to code unclassified on Force 13's preparedness scale, and we have still the remnants of Nicole active, about to move into Greenland, and tropical depression 94S, which is virtually directly over Christmas Island right now near Australia. In the Atlantic, it's day 171 of hurricane season, and it is all quiet on this front. Any sign of life is difficult to see right now, with the end of season coming up in sight now, less than 2 weeks to go, but who knows, we might still get some more action. Day 188 of the Eastern Pacific hurricane season, and it looks even less likely here that we'll see any further activity this year. It would be extremely unlikely at this point. I think the Eastern Pacific is as good as finished now, as far as we can see this year. The Western Pacific still has an area of interest right now that our team have marked at 10% in the South China Sea, first moving through the Philippines over the next couple of days. It will end up in the South China Sea shortly, and a 50% chance in the Bay of Bengal for a broad system that could end up developing in India. In the southern hemisphere, this tropical depression, which hasn't been designated or named yet, 94S is the invest name, currently moving towards the east-southeast generally, and is likely to be short-lived if it does reach tropical storm status. So let's check some satellite imagery of the Atlantic right now. It looks like this, and you can see a massive gulf of dry air across an extremely large area, pushing down all of that tropical activity in the Caribbean out over the main development region of the Atlantic. Western Caribbean looking shoddy as well. It's looking pretty dead out there. Eastern Pacific, there's one or two little areas there, the thunderstorms, tropical storms there over the intertropical convergence zone, but not an organized tropical cyclone. So apart from that, there is nothing to look at, and that is likely going to be a fleeting feature. Western Pacific looks like this. You can see the Philippines getting quite a bit of rain right now from this tropical wave that's blowing through, and that, as we've mentioned there, could become that tropical system that moves into the South China Sea and might get itself more organized towards the end of the 5-day period. We'll take a look properly at the models in a few moments. Indian Ocean looks like this. You can see on the south side there that depression, which looked better earlier on, may have been a tropical storm briefly already actually, but it's generally moving off towards the east-southeast, blowing up another little bit of convection there as the first part has got quite sheared off. And this is the Australian region in more clarity, and you can see over Australia itself a few thunderstorms over the northern reaches, but elsewhere it's fairly quiet. Although Adelaide might be getting some rain showers fairly shortly. Onto the sea surface temperatures, and this is how it looks in the Eastern Pacific right now. You can see that those temperatures are still fairly decent, holding strong, 28 degrees plus off the coast of Mexico should another system find itself there. The Caribbean Sea also holding on there with warm temperatures, 28 degrees, loop current still active. Gulf Stream also still pushing those warmer sea surface temperatures north, and even in the main area of the Atlantic Ocean we are still looking at a large expanse of warm waters thanks to higher than normal sea surface temperature anomalies. Indian Ocean is only a little bit as warm as that, 28 degrees. It's the northernmost reaches of that Bay of Bengal area there have tailed off quite a bit. Western Pacific though still looking very good indeed, 28, 29 degrees, pushing 30 in the lower latitudes, and in the southern hemisphere there where that tropical depression is, it's around 27 degrees there right now. And much warmer waters towards the rest of Australia, the northern areas there, and the Gulf of Carpentaria, which I'm sure we'll be watching more fairly soon. Anomalies, the West Pacific is quite a bit above average, the Atlantic very much so, particularly in the subtropics. The Eastern Pacific, not really, it's generally probably below average now, with the La Nina still quite clear to see there and is still ongoing. Coral Sea though, well above average, more than any of those areas that I've mentioned there. OHC, oceanic heat content, is still looking good in the one or two areas of the Caribbean Sea. Basically draw a line from Haiti to the western part of Cuba. Eastern Pacific, only a few little blotches. But then again, it's been like that all year. And the Western Pacific, a few areas there looking good. So let's check the computer models, the GFS, over the next 5 days. This is what it's throwing out in the Western Pacific. Look out for some rotation, and we're starting to see it there. Some green areas there, potential tropical storm force winds. Very elongated. Later on, does it get a little bit tighter? It's hard to tell there, and I don't think it manages to become a tropical cyclone on that, but there's plenty of opportunity for it. That first little sequence there that you can see, and then after that elongated period, maybe a second period just as it about arrives in Vietnam. Interesting. Indian Ocean, Bay of Bengal looking like this, an extremely broad system. You can see it getting a little bit stronger winds in the next few days as it slowly meanders towards the coast of India. GFS isn't keen on it even making it to India before it dissipates completely, but as it is there, I'm not seeing any tropical storm force winds. It might become a tropical depression. I think a tropical storm is a bit of a reach right now, but general movement west-northwest, slowly but surely towards Andhra Pradesh. And this is the other system, the depression right now over Christmas Island, moving east-southeast at first and then stalling a little bit. But even this one isn't showing up very much on the GFS model. Yes, it's got some rotation there, but does it ever reach tropical storm status? I'm not seeing many greens. It gets close, but it's a struggle for this system as it continues eastwards, but it does linger for a while, and I suppose whilst that's the case, there will be an opportunity for it, I'm sure. It gets quite close to the island of Java as well during that time. Now looking at the global or the wide shot of this whole East Asian region, you can see all of the rainfall accumulations over the next 7 days. Some of those higher points we're about to annotate here. Yellow zones generally over 5 or 6 inches, which is 150 millimeters. Into the reds, you're over 10 inches there, 250 millimeters, and we're pointing out some of those areas now along the coast of the Philippines. Some parts of Indonesia as well might get towards 200 millimeters of rain there. Coast of India at the moment, because the storm doesn't fully get there, we're only looking at 4 or 5 inches, which once again is just over 100 millimeters, but that still is substantial. For Australia right now, there might just be 1 or 2 little splodges of 100 millimeters in the next 7 days. Longer range, this is Dave. You can see what happens with that system there, and some of its energy transfers into a potential new cyclone that is stronger and a trough for the west coast of for Western Australia, I should say, diving southwards, probably on day 7 or maybe day 8 there. That's the 25th as it makes landfall, and then weakens very quickly as it moves inland. Storms that make landfall in that area are very common. At this point, we'd like to show you our merch store. Scan the barcode and it will take you right there. We have all of our usual products, including our full season and individual animations on request, bespoke to your liking, and our still waiting for Hone t-shirt. We might have to do a Christmas version or something of that, but yep, it's still out there. In the silly range, and this might be construed as silly, there's a tropical storm in the Atlantic, low latitude there, Caribbean system into Nicaragua, survives as it strikes the Yucatan there, and a second much larger system out over the Atlantic Ocean proper that tries to become a hurricane towards the end there. I've no doubt that the early stages of that is tropical, so 2 systems on the Atlantic in the long range. That of course is day 10 to 16. I would hate for this to happen because this would coincide completely with Hurricane Week, and the Atlantic, I'm sure, is going to do its level best to try and spoil it. Anyway, in the Western Pacific, has some plans of its own as well in the long range. Once again, don't take too much notice of these because they are very long range, but there's a late season typhoon forming there in the Philippine Sea. Quite a high latitude. You'd usually expect them to be lower latitude in those. You know, we're coming into December there as we look at that period, but this kind of thing can happen in late November, so it certainly can't be ruled out completely, but it is super long range. I wouldn't put much faith in it either. And the Australian region, What else have we got? Another system out there, possibly over the Indian Ocean, that might try to develop into a tropical storm, and it just might be succeeding. And two new systems that form right at the end there, one that swirls around into the Gulf of Carpentaria, and another one there that's just off the north coast. And I'm unfamiliar with these areas because it's been a while since we've done Australia. I forget what region that is, but potentially two systems right at the end of that thing. So the Australian region could be getting very busy in the first days of December, but let's just put that on hold for a minute. Hurricane week is coming up in just 10 days time. We are well into the countdown now, and the main feature is very much well on track, and I'm quite confident that some of the side features will be done as well, fingers crossed. It's a pretty tough slog, but a lot of work going into it as always, and I'm sure it will meet your anticipation. Well, on this day, on November 18th, 1964, Typhoon Louise was an extremely powerful Category 5 storm barreling towards the coast of the Philippines. It would make landfall near Surigao and then move over the Visayas region and then sweep northwards, and it would then also get a second name, Marge, because the authorities thought that it had become a new system, and still possibly might have done. We don't really know. But that was Louise. Back to this year. Well, any prospects for the next Atlantic name? Its next name on the list is Owen. In the Eastern Pacific, Seymour, but I don't think we'll see it. And in the Central Pacific, we are indeed still waiting for Hone, and that naming list doesn't refresh at the new year. In the Western Pacific, our next name is Pakar, and in the North Indian Ocean, we have Meanders. And possibility that we might see it out of this system, but if we don't, I think there may still be another chance down the road. In the Australian region, the next name is Darian. I'm sure we'll see it soon. In the Southwest Indian, Chaniso, and in the South Pacific, Harley. We'll be back with another tropical weather bulletin tomorrow night.